what was your takeaway of like some of the questions people were asking, what they are going to do and what they aren't going to do?
Yeah. Um, Essentially, they were asking to have all the APIs that would enable them to do what we currently do in Club Deck on
Right,
Clubhouse. So,
right.
restreaming, recording for podcasting,
Yep.
all the interactions, the statistics, and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, the other interesting thing is that Twitter, I don't know if you remember, but Twitter had issues with developers in the past. Do you remember that big thing?
Years ago when they were starting in
Yeah,
2007, 8, 9, they
absolutely.
had a lot of APIs and people built a lot of apps on top of Twitter. I mean, lots of
We
apps. I
did,
mean, hundreds of
and we did
apps.
it, by the way. I did.
And then infamously, one day, magically, they turned off all the APIs and all those apps died. And the developers were rightfully furious that Twitter did this
Yes.
because Twitter was encouraging everyone to build these apps, and it's like here, build a bunch of houses over here on this land, and everyone built houses, and then Twitter turned off the electricity and the power, and it was like, what the hell? You were just telling us to go build over here, and we spent all this time and money building, and then Twitter's like, yeah, sorry about that.
And that's it. And that's what happened to us,
Right.
actually, to me and Philippe. So,
Yep. A lot of people,
and
yeah.
this is interesting because I think they're learning from that. So they
Right.
have a different attitude now towards developers. They're trying to win their favors, basically, to be nice to them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, because developers are like, yeah, I'm never doing that again with you. Yeah, I mean, any company Jack Dorsey ever does, developers gonna be like, yeah, no thanks.
but the interesting thing was that there seemed to be a discrepancy between what developers were asking and general people in the audience, like content creators, were asking, and what the Twitter Space team has in mind. You remember,
Right,
you've been saying that uh, numerous times here in that room that you think that Twitter Space is ideal for like famous artists to open a Twitter Space and with some sort of ticketing, and that would be awesome
right.
for those guys, and an easy way for Twitter to monetize, which is slightly different from the idea of
Yep,
collaborative, yeah, conversation, collaborative content creation like we
conversational.
have here
Yeah.
on Clubhouse. And when people were asking the
Yep.
Twitter Space team, are you going to open APIs that will enable us to record the audio, stream audio into and out to and outside, sorry, Twitter Space? Um, they were like saying it's not our priority right now. They were more on the social aspects, but it didn't seem like putting out, giving good APIs to be able to build tools to put out quality content in terms of audio quality, for instance, wasn't on top of their agenda. The other thing which is awful is the latency when you
Yeah.
invite somebody on stage there. That's I still don't get. I still don't get it.
I'm so sorry. Somebody's open and it's giving us a little echo.
I think it's Rhonda.
It might just be Pierre you've got
Might
something.
be me.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, it's. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
And we don't have the echo.
Go ahead.
So yeah,
No.
that was somebody else. But that's it. I think Tyler, unless you have any other
Yep.
point you want
So
to make.
yeah, to be seen, and they said it would be like a couple months away still, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. We
And they
asked.
said it's still not open for all Twitter users, and that explains why the rooms, as big as they are yesterday at 40,000, were not 4 million, because that Korean pop group, I was surprised it was only 40,000, because I could see that getting to millions very quickly.
Yeah, the K-pop groups, especially BTK, I mean, they've thwarted trends.
Yeah.
They were trolling Donald Trump, when he was trying to
Yep.
trend something, and they would come out in force. So I'm with you, Tyler. I think that once it fully launches, K-pop is going to be a force on that platform.
That's ridiculous. Well, they can the ticketed rooms, and they can charge their fans to listen to songs. Holy cow! Every musical artist, every comedian, anyone with like a fan base, to be able to do a room like this and have tickets to join the room. It's just holy cow. They're gonna be printing
Morning,
money.
Tyler and everyone.
Good morning,
I've
Ame.
literally had no sleep. I've just gotten back to Amsterdam. But I wanted to share something that came out last night, Tyler, because I think you'd be really interested in hearing it. Apparently there was a big sort of blindside by Elizabeth Warren, who kind of threw everyone under the bus. There's a lot of people talking about writing to their congressmen and stuff regarding Bitcoin, because the meeting was actually supposed to be for CDBC discussion, and because of what El Salvador president did, the United States did not know what to do, and they literally blindsided everyone and went after Bitcoin, like heavily, and it shocked everyone in Cafe Bitcoin. Like they opened up a room that I had like 650 people at some point, like in the morning, when I was leaving my Newark. So it was very interesting because everyone is like, wow, like they're just shocked because basically Elizabeth Warren just went completely against Bitcoin in a heavy way, but blindsided everyone because she was speaking about things that weren't even valid. So basically everyone in the room is saying to write to their congressperson and sort of go and testify because you have 5 days. But those hearings are actually online underneath someone's Twitter. I will tweet them. I will tweet her what she wrote out because it's a lot of misinformation.
So this was a Clubhouse room that I
correct.
saw that you're talking about, where it said it was like live streaming a congressional hearing about crypto,
it was
about
a CBDC
digital currencies.
regulatory meeting, and it was supposed to be about CDBC, and then it ended up going like basically last minute because el presidente in El Salvador made the decision very late at night. And apparently the United States got wind of it. By the time they got wind of it, they switched the meeting over from CDBC to sort of go after Bitcoin. And really what they're trying to do, from what I understood from the gentleman in the group and those that were in the room talking about it, is that they're trying to make it difficult for anyone that has BTC to convert it to dollar coming from those countries. So basically they're bear hugging. I think there was a gentleman in the audience that mentioned bear hug, and we mentioned it a couple of times. They're trying to now bear hug them, like basically suffocate people out of Bitcoin. And I think a lot of people in that room were really, really super surprised that went that way. And they're literally now telling everyone who's a Republican or Democrat to start writing to their congresspeople because there was a lot of misinformation.
Well,
inside
you
the
keep saying the word
like,
they,
example,
but we have no
United
idea
States,
who you mean when you say
we're allowed
they.
to write to testify. So, like, we have 5 days that we could write in to testify and explain intelligently and refute those things that Senator Warren was saying, right?
Right. So I got the headline here. Yeah. Here's the article that people are writing because, as you said, a lot of people are furious at Elizabeth Warren. And thank you to Faraz for finding this article.
Thanks, Faraz.
That I just tweeted out from the Tech News Twitter account, so you can. I'll be finding others as well. And as I read this, no doubt, Poppy and others in the audience are going to find other articles about this topic, and we will retweet those as well. But to see them, you got to follow the Twitter account, which is TNATW, which is short for Tech News Around the World, the first letters of Tech News Around the World. And the first article, the headline is from Decrypt, which is a very popular website in the crypto community. And the headline is, Elizabeth Warren trashes Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and other crypto in a Senate hearing. Crypto is a lousy investment, quote unquote, and a quote unquote haven for illegal activity, says U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren. And Elizabeth Warren is not just any U.S. senator. She's one of the most powerful senators in the U.S. In brief, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's a Democrat, levied serious criticisms against cryptocurrency during the hearing of the Senate Banking Committee. She attacked its role in scams, hacks, and climate, accusing that it takes a lot of energy, etc. And the hearing was focused on the development of potential central bank digital currencies, and that's what you keep hearing Ame refer to as CBDCs, central bank digital currencies like a digital dollar or a digital Chinese yuan or a digital Swedish crown, which Sweden is working on as well. There's a lot of central banks working on central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. So during the hearing on the development of potential central bank digital currency, Senator Warren criticized cryptocurrencies for their role in facilitating scams, ransomware attacks, and pollution. In her opening statement, Warren called crypto a fourth-rate alternative to a real currency, thanks to it being a quote-unquote a lousy way to buy and sell things, a lousy investment, and a haven for illegal activity. She clearly is not laser eyes, as we say. Unlike the dollar, said Warren, the value fluctuates wildly depending on the whims of speculative day traders. In just the last 2 months, the value of Dogecoin increased by more than tenfold and then declined by 60%, she said. They may work for speculators and fly-by-night investors, but not for regular people looking for a regular source of value to get paid in and use for day-to-day spending. But Warren made clear that her criticisms were limited to just Bitcoin. Her criticisms were not only limited to Bitcoin or Dogecoin. Most cryptocurrencies are extremely volatile, she reasoned, which makes them difficult to use as a medium for exchange. She also cited crypto's lack of consumer protection laws, which leave little legal recourse for victims of scams. As for how crypto facilitates some forms of illegal activity, Warren mentioned recent ransomware attacks on the Colonial Pipeline and the JBS, a meat supply company, which is, by the way, is our next headline, both of which involved crypto payments. And then she says every hack that is successfully paid off with a cryptocurrency becomes an advertisement for more hackers to try more cyber attacks. And it goes on, which you can read yourself. And so this is when this was happening, there was a live stream feed into Clubhouse, which May and others were in that room. I popped in briefly myself. And after the live stream ended from this Senate hearing on CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, which no doubt really rattled the crypto community, trashing and really talking down on something that they feel is the future. And so now they're saying that we have to write to our representatives and let them know that they have it all wrong, basically, and we gotta help them, educate them, and see the light. So
Tyler, I think
yes.
I apologize for interrupting, but I think one of the things that I found very interesting out of all this, that I was trying to ask the question, but it just got too busy, I just coming back from Miami, where everyone's full blown steam ahead. I was there when the amount was given of $400 million into a crypto fund to build up the Miami-Dade County as a crypto sort of mecca in terms of education, in terms of business, in terms of a lot of things, which I find fascinating because wait a second, Florida is in a state of its own for sure. But Florida is part of the U.S. last time I checked, but maybe they're not.
Yeah.
But I'm quite curious.
And it's also a state of mind as well. Yeah,
I know, but it's so wild because I'm also trying to see what impact that's going to have. But also, I do have a little bit of news that's probably hot off the presses because I did speak with someone from Costa Rica that was pretty high up. The next country is Costa Rica, because I was on the plane coming back with Akon's manager and will.i.am's manager. And they're going to Africa, and they're also meeting Jack Dorsey in Costa Rica in a month to discuss certain things. And Tony Robbins is building a facility in Costa Rica that's going to do stem cell and gene therapy, the stuff that he does. So it's going to be very interesting, but it looks like Costa Rica will be the next one. And after that, it'll be Panama, and then after that, it'll be Mexico. So Latin America is moving full force onto moving themselves onto crypto and unpegging themselves from the U.S. dollar, which is why the United States is panicked. Because in some ways, there's a saying in Spanish, somos clavos. And somos clavos means we're the slaves of the U.S. dollar. Because Latin America has always had to rely on the U.S. dollar for its revenue and just getting business from the U.S. So this is going to be something for me very interesting to watch personally, because I have some personal connections in those places. And now hearing that Jack Dorsey's going down there, I think this is going to be an interesting next couple of weeks to see what happens. It's going to be an interesting summer.
It is. Now, by the way, we should, as a room full of very bright and beautiful people, I would encourage at this moment that we invite in, if you are in the audience or on stage and you happen to know friends in Central or South America who are into crypto or government policy making and whatnot, let's invite them in and get them into this conversation, because this is going to get really interesting really quickly. And a Mexican senator yesterday changed his photo to have laser eyes, which indicates that he's full on the crypto train, and he wants to bring crypto to Mexico, and he's writing a bill that he hopes will be passed in Mexico, just as it was yesterday in El Salvador. And as Amay's saying, there is, as Americans know, and as people, that's why I want to invite in community members from South and Central America, because South and Central America have always had an interesting relationship with America in terms of it being this big boss kind of pushing everybody around. And the Latinos have always been like, you know what, we kind of just want to do our own thing down here, and we don't need this big bully kind of pushing us around. And it's an interesting relationship. And the idea of being able to kind of break off and have their own thing separate from the dollar, I could see how this could be very appealing. Seriously, work together as a team, and try to be supportive of each other, and specifically the leadership of those countries meet somewhat regularly in a kind of their own little get-togethers in a very personal way. There's even, I've watched documentaries of how they get together, even with Castro from Cuba would be part of that group, and they would try and support each other when one of them needed oil or one of them needed some resources. They would kind of get together in a familiar kind of way and support each other. And so I could see them getting together and adopting this. And it would be that would be wildly interesting. And I think, to Amay's point, what she's saying is, I think Jack Dorsey knows what I'm saying right now. And I think he understands that they could see this as their prison break moment. And there's, if that's the case, oh boy, is there a whole lot of opportunity for the crypto folks to really get a big train rolling with a whole bunch of countries working together in this sort of capacity. Am I making sense to me?
As a Latina, I could safe to say that you're 100% accurate, because as we are very culturally collective in how we do things, and we trust our own.
Yep.
Very similar to the Chinese, right?
Yeah, you're united by the language and the culture of South and Central America. They're all kind of brothers and sisters down there.
I have a couple of people that are down there, because the lady that I'm speaking of, she doesn't speak English that well, but she's friends with the presidente in El Salvador, and she's also connected to Mexico. So, and I know a bunch of people already went down to El Salvador from actually within Clubhouse. A couple of the gentlemen from the Bitcoin group went down already. They're already there. So,
and I'm happy to see Luis Flores raised his hand, and welcome back, Luis. What's your
I
thoughts?
spent the entire day reaching out to family members, even my mother, and here's what I've learned in a nutshell. The overall understanding of what happened in El Salvador is on nobody's normal radar. My mother's clueless. This is interesting to me because that's how slow the news is to what's happening. We know what's happening. That's number one. Number two, her understanding of the president of El Salvador, and she was born and from Mexico, and she lives there most of the year. Her understanding of him is he's very radical, and he's very forward thinking, and he frustrates and he pisses off a lot of other politicians because of what he attempts to do. In my experience with people like that, they either make changes or get the people behind them as far as Mexico goes in trying to make change. So he, to me, from my mother's standpoint, is a very radical, forward-thinking guy who frustrates and pisses off a lot of people. Prior to what he's spoken about Bitcoin, to me, that indicates the guy has guts. Now, I've spent most of the day with a couple of gentlemen speaking about what's happening in El Salvador, who came from the conference. I just came back from Miami I was with IMA, luckily. They agree that there are more countries that are going to jump on board. This is inevitable. Our guessing stone was who was going to be next. The big thing that was mentioned by you guys that caught me off guard was that they want to disassociate themselves from the US dollar bill. In my experience, and I visit Mexico multiple times a year, a large portion of my family still in Mexico, I never got the sentiment or the feeling that they hated or were against the US dollar bill. It was the manipulation and the corruption of Mexican government of the peso. And it was the peso that has been destroyed multiple times and lost zeros where it took from the public. So they like US dollar bills, in my experience, more than they like pesos. I don't see it. I'm trying to see the future.
That's
I
true.
don't see it getting themselves away from the US dollar bill. I see it as a way of them understanding the currency. They're going to adopt the US dollar bill even stronger if they're going to use cryptocurrency in the form of that's how they're going to rate their products. Products in Mexico are based on pesos and dollar bills, nothing else. They love and they appreciate dollar bills more because they can manipulate how they're going to turn it back in. They price the price of whatever taco, soda, or whatever they're going to buy at a higher dollar rate because they make a little bit of extra profit off of that when they go and turn it into the bank or to what's called the Casa de Cambio. I think this is going to blow the Latin community world. For me, from a studio and television standpoint, it is the most under used ability of studios in the United States. The growth of the Latino community is much faster in children born than it is any other race. So the market of that is growing. Ultimately, in the end, over the next 20 years, all these Latin countries are going to win, win, win. I'm happy to explore the world, and that's what I'm learning. And I just came out about it.
Thanks, Luis. It's a great point. Yeah, it's not about being against the U.S. dollar, and in fact, Mexicans, which I live on the border. I grew up born and raised in San Diego, with Mexican family. A maid and who I considered my auntie my whole life, and I consider real family, and gardeners, and we grow up speaking every weekend of my life in Mexico for the most part. So it's I can confirm that Mexicans near the border especially prefer dollars over pesos, and they so it's not that they're against the dollar exactly, and that's a very important point that you're making. And it's gonna, but I think you're right where you said it's a question of who's next, and that's why when Amay came in, the first thing she says is it looks like it might be Costa Rica, which is kind of interesting. And that it could have if things do start to be positive for El Salvador with regard to Bitcoin, and people start coming down there and bringing and relocating and bringing, if it has a positive influence a net positive influence, then I could imagine that you will see places like, as she's saying, Costa Rica and others, and this could be a domino effect. And especially if people like Jack Dorsey and Tony Robbins or whatever are coming down and helping develop and doing things in a positive way. Of course, if they're doing things in a negative way, then naturally they will pull the e-brake, and the train will come to a slow stop. But if I imagine that's how this could play out. It's going to be very interesting to see, as you said, how this, everyone's going to be watching this very, very
I
closely.
would like to say,
But
I'm sorry, I would like to say one thing that I think is very valuable. In speaking with more and more of my relatives out there and reaching out, the younger demographic, 25 and below, have excellent English speaking skills. There's nothing more
yeah,
common that I'm seeing of their ability to learn the English language, appreciate, embrace, and want to become multi-language capable. So I think it's underestimated and undervalued how aggressive they are in the English speaking learning community throughout all of Mexico.
yeah. So we're going to keep a very close eye, and we're going to try and get more of the crypto folks who are on the ground there to participate in the conversations going forward. So that when we meet later today, and hopefully by the time we end today, because we're going to
Can
be
we
in here
just
for
do one
another couple
more
hours, and
crypto
get
headline and finish it off
yeah,
on that, Tyler? There's
okay, sure,
something that I
yeah,
tweeted out, and I don't have an understanding around it. Perhaps I might be able to comment on it. There's something that
okay.
Elon said around the space race between Doge and another coin. Are you familiar with something around this? Otherwise, we can drop it and just move on to other news.
Which was there a coin? Was there a coin name given or no?
Yeah, I'll just tell you right now. Just give me.
DM me what the coin is, and I could do a little rabbit hole research. I'm all into that right now
It's
after watching The Matrix again.
Yeah, so it's on the Doge versus Bitcoin. Elon Musk declares crypto space race with BitMEX has begun. Just look it up on the
I'll look it up
on
because there is something that I have about
I've
that as
got it.
well. I still have to go down that rabbit hole with Carl and you. So
I just retweeted it, and I've got the headline here. And the headline is, and you can now read it yourself from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, which you can see by clicking on the title of the room. And the title is Doge versus Bitcoin. Elon Musk declares crypto space race with BitMEX has begun. Can BitMEX and Bitcoin beat Elon Musk and Dogecoin to launch the first crypto asset into lunar orbit?
Sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
A 21st, yeah. It says a 21st century space race appears to be brewing between Elon Musk and Bitcoin of choice to the literal moon first. On June 4th, the popular crypto derivatives exchange called BitMEX announced it would be supporting space robotics firm Astrobotics Technology in the company's mission to send its first commercial lander to the moon at the end of 2020. Noting that the mission aims to be the first instance in which a private company lending a coalition of government, academia, industry, and international partners reaches the lunar surface. BitMEX plans to make the occasion by delivering a one-of-a-kind physical Bitcoin, of course, which there is no such thing, to the moon's surface, referring to Musk as a Dogecoin, protagonist. We've nothing against dog money. We felt it was only right to help Bitcoin get there first. So essentially, Elon Musk is saying he wants to take this is all just very silly at the end of the day.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And this is why I said it's a rabbit hole. Do you remember a couple of months ago I found that Geometric Space Corporation and the machines that they were buying, the boxes, they bought about 25 or something like that. I have the information. I have the links to it. And it was talking about this, that they do want to be that SpaceX, they are going to try and get that up there on the surface by the time the launch happens. But the challenge here is that this isn't just them. Ethereum's also in process of doing it. And what they're doing is they're getting computer boxes, like computers themselves, hard drives, and they're going to take them up there and put them up there. So it's going to be interesting.
So let me unpack this for my mom who's listening. Okay, so when Dogecoin came out, people said we're going to all support Dogecoin, and we're going to send the price of Dogecoin up to the moon. It's high, it's super high, really, really high. And then some people got the idea because Elon Musk was supporting Bitcoin, and he has rockets that he could very literally take Dogecoin to the moon. And that's where the pun started. That's where the joke started. And so Elon Musk is saying he is going to take Dogecoin to the actual literal moon. Okay, because that's how crazy these people are. Of course, there's no one to buy or trade these coins with on the moon. There are no shops yet on the moon that we are aware of. We are looking for a Starbucks. There might be a Starbucks on the moon. If there is a shop, it's most likely a Starbucks. But as of yet, unless someone can find an article supporting or denying the existence of said lunar Starbucks,
I deny
there's
that
nowhere
Best
to
Buy
spend
ever
these
opened
coins
a
on the
store
moon.
there.
Now, okay, fair enough. Although let's see if we can get a headline to corroborate our friend Cal with his claims there. But the lack of stores on the moon is not preventing these wild folks from taking their coins literally to the moon. And it's a PR campaign, as Elon Musk is known for being kind of a marketing genius and driving hype and awareness. So he's taking Dogecoin to the moon literally, and now BitMEX, not wanting to be out-indicated and seeing a golden PR opportunity, says, oh, well, screw you, Elon. We're going to take Bitcoin to the moon, literally. And so they are trying to figure out how to get a hard drive with their crypto wallets on it and place it on the surface of the moon. And so that led Elon Musk to make a tweet saying there's a new space race has begun. That's what he meant, is who's going to get their coin to the surface of the moon first in the form of a hard drive with a crypto wallet on it, the Dogecoin with Elon Musk through his rockets, or BitMEX, this big exchange, who they want to see Bitcoin on the moon first before Dogecoin.
It's brilliant marketing.
It's brilliant marketing is what it is.
Yeah. There's also some technical stuff behind that. I'm going to find the articles and I'm going to tweet them.
Yeah,
but now, if I could just say two things, Tyler, if I can, or actually just one thing here, right? So if you look at what happened to Bitcoin when it first came out, which was the vision was that at one point it would be used in shops, which never happened. And the wide case scenario has still not happened, which is it's going to be used as a
with the exception of a little town in El Salvador, interestingly, yeah.
Interesting, right? So, but you get the major point, which was people started
Yeah, of
buying,
course.
and today it's trading at XYZ. Now, the whole concept is there's going to be space currency. And
Right.
which
So
currency is going to be used in
exactly right.
space? And
That's the other big implication in this space race that Elon Musk is referring to, which is what will be the currency of Mars, for example, or the moon, or space, or the International Space Station, if and when humans start to develop that. And by the way, we haven't really got this working in El Salvador yet, so it's a little presumptive to be curious about, how it's going to work on Mars.
but that's the way
So,
that this community works, and that is the way they start buying,
yes.
and that is the way price
And
surges
I would
happen.
say that is actually one of the big frailties of this system. It kind of detaches from the ground realities of what's happening in Ho Chi Minh City when they're focused on Mars. So it's because geeks do tend to get a little ahead of themselves. I'm guilty of it as much as anybody. And it is helpful that we get reminders. And that is the essence of Elizabeth Warren is taking the extreme version of a cold water slap in the face of let's really address the weakness, but she's doing it in a very abrasive, almost upsetting way, as she's notoriously known for doing. I mean, that's just her style as a member of Congress, that she's got this very particular style that is endearing to many people. That's why she's actually liked by lots of people, and is very abrasive to other people if you're on the other side of her argument, which she's clearly put the crypto community in her crosshairs, and they are responding in kind. And that's it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because now you've had in the past 24 hours both Donald Trump say that Bitcoin's a scam and Elizabeth Warren essentially saying the same. So you've now got very high profile Republicans and Democrats both coming out as anti-crypto, and that's new. That's a very big development
El
within the past
Salvador
24 hours
taking
on both
Bitcoin
sides.
as the legal tender, and the moon taking Doge as the legal tender for it.
Correct. And and simultaneously in the past 24 hours, you've got El Salvador doing the opposite of what America's leadership is doing and fully embracing it. And then you've got their neighbors also starting to, looking with kind of honeymoon eyes to wonder if there's opportunity, and they're going to be watching El Salvador very closely with a
Sorry,
lot
Tyler.
of
I just wanted to say,
curiosity and attention.
yeah, thank you. I just
So
want to
it's
say, it's
yes,
a really big
design
missed
Juju.
opportunity when we talk about currency on the moon. In all my wildest Star Trek geek dreams, there was no currency in space. And it's such a shame that we actually, as human beings, cannot think around this issue, that actually there shouldn't be any currency in space at all.
Thank you for saying that. That's how I
Nicely
feel
said.
too. It's like if humanity's gonna take us there, are we really gonna fucking worry about money up there?
Yeah, like we just seem to be doing the same. It's like we're doing these really forward thinking things, but we can't seem to escape the systems that are really, really old systems and really, in some ways, quite backward. Like we're going to space. We're actually going to space. We're going to the moon, and we're still talking about currency. Like, why are we talking about that? Why are we in that position? It's just really curious. But thank you.
That's amazingly insightful. Like the whole thing is just a troll, like a huge giant troll, right? Like how is Doge supposed to be like the currency for space? Like who cares, right? Like it doesn't matter what the currency is, right?
I have a question.
I want to address
I'm
the.
sure it's gonna be a good one, Cheryl. What's your question?
I'm just thinking because in on Earth, right, we have a lot of options for content, but in the moon or the space, right, we have less. So I guess VR will be the main thing, isn't it? So is that the area that they can actually use their currency in space? Because you are constrained in the space, right? In the space shuttle, I mean, as in whatever rocket or whatever, you cannot really go out. And even if you want to go out, there's not much options there. But VR will kick off if more and more people are going to the space.
The plan is to build a
I completely
civilization on Moon
missed your
and
question.
Yeah, because
Mars.
on Earth you have more options, right? You can choose to be in the virtual or in the real world. So I guess most people are still more used to the real world. But I think in space, I'm sure the virtual world will be
Yeah, that makes sense. The
VR will be
spacecraft you go up in
the
is the
biggest
only one
option
you
for
have,
them.
right?
Yeah.
Why
If
would
you go
space
up,
not have a virtual world?
Huh? You can go Disneyland in the space if you have a VR set.
Oh.
I'm not sure what your question
I'm
is,
saying
Cheryl.
that if more and more people are going towards space, I think VR will have more opportunity to prosper. Because on Earth, you have a
On
lot of
Earth?
options. But in the space, you don't have much options yet, right? For entertainment, yeah.
Oh, what you're saying is people on the moon will bring VR
Yep.
headsets because it's boring there.
That's funny.
Okay, when you
Yeah,
say it that way,
wouldn't
that
you just have
got
I
you.
mean,
Okay.
again, this is complete conjecture from Star Trek. You just have holosuites, right? So, it,
Well, now you know why they had a
yeah,
holodeck
exactly. So
on their
that's the
spaceship.
thing.
Yeah,
It's like we're thinking, we're so forward thinking, but we're
because it.
thinking there is this thing
Hey,
that
hey, yeah. If you think Earth's boring, wait till you try the moon, y'all. There ain't
you
no
can
shopping
create a
malls on the
shopping mall in a
moon,
holodeck. Like you can
Yeah, you
literally
can have
write your
virtual
character
gallery.
into a holodeck.
right?
Right. I always think that people,
Water slides. Hold on.
right.
Does
I always
Mars
think
have a
that
Yeah,
water
people
so
don't
slide
want
or
to
water
go
not?
is
to,
there.
people don't want to go
I
to
didn't think so.
Bakersfield, but they want to go to Mars, and my mind is just blown.
yeah, have
Go
you
spend
been
a
to
weekend in
Fresno? Sorry,
Fresno.
no, just kidding.
So I wanted to remind folks, particularly design futures, that the original space race was, a race for military domination. So let's compare and contrast the '60s with trying to get to space to build missile. It's pointing at the U.S. and the Cold War essentially. So now it's currency. I'll take the currency any day.
Okay, so let's jump into other hot news happening around the interwebs. The top story from my stack here is, you remember the meat packing plant that got had the ransomware attack? It was the world's largest meat production company called JBS. It's now been revealed that JBS says it has paid $11 million ransom attack last week. The payment was made after the plants were operational to avoid further disruption. So the plants were already back and running, and essentially the ransom was paid so that these hackers wouldn't do further disruptions, which is quite an interesting development. And of course, if this is in the Wall Street Journal, I will tweet out this article as always from our Twitter account at TNATW, where we tweet all of the articles we discuss, and you can retweet them and like them and save them and read them in depth yourself. But the point is that, of course, in this article which I read, they notified the FBI immediately. And this, by the way, this sounds nearly identical to the pipeline, where and the quote from the decision maker at the meatpacking plant says precisely the same thing. It was very painful to make this payment, but we called the FBI immediately, blah, blah, blah. Well, if everything followed exactly the same, which it probably did, would not then the FBI, do the same kind of things? And might we, a week from now, get another update that the FBI actually managed to apprehend the paid ransom?
Tyler, I would like to
yes.
comment on that because it's a very interesting dynamic, and I think that what you're seeing right now is actually the fact that Bitcoin is transparent. Because that was part of my exam for Chainalysis. Chainalysis works with the FBI. They're out of Singapore. And even when I did my certification, that was what I was trained to do, is follow the Bitcoin, follow the addresses and see where they go. And this is something that's super transparent. So I would probably say they may have a good chance of getting it back. Because now when things are transacted in Bitcoin, it is transparent. I think people have this misnomer that it's not, but it actually is. So it's not hard once the FBI starts understanding how to trace these addresses for them to be able to secure this money back or sequester it back. My only next question comes is, who are they giving back the Bitcoin to? The organization in which who paid it? Or what's going to happen with that? Is it going to become evidence of a crime? That would be my question.
Yep. So Biden signs an executive order revoking Trump's previous attempts to ban TikTok and WeChat, and says that the Commerce Secretary will investigate risks to national security and privacy, which that was Trump's accusations, of course, is that WeChat and TikTok were risks to national security and privacy. And so what Biden is saying is they're removing the ban, and that there will be an investigation into the actual risks to national security and privacy, which, by the way, is very interesting in itself, because just last week, in between, after Trump left, obviously, so just a week ago, TikTok just changed their privacy settings to make them a far more bigger potential risk to security and privacy, because the privacy policy change that TikTok added is truly worth noting, which is they added the fact that they will be doing what are called voice prints and face prints, using your camera and microphone to extract data from your beautiful, beautiful face and your lovely dulcet voice. And the data that they can get from your face and your voice would blow your mind. And indeed, it does deserve a lot of investigation. But it won't only be TikTok who's doing this. Essentially, just the day before TikTok, the Asics shoe maker, running shoe company, also said they want to scan your face before and after your workouts to get the emotional state of your face before and after your workout. And indeed, they can tell the emotional state of your face, even if you are trying to deceive these machine learning facial recognition algorithms. You can pretend that you're sad, and it actually knows that you're happy, faking that you're sad. That's how good these algorithms are getting, and they are winning poker competitions to prove the point, because poker is all about fake, lying to your opponents about what cards you have. And now these AIs are, obviously started winning chess matches, and then Go, the popular game in the East, and now they're winning poker matches amongst the world's best poker players, who are the world's best. Most AIs are very, very, very good indeed at detecting your emotional state, even if you are incredibly good at lying about your emotional state.
Sunglasses won't be enough, right? Like
right. So
even past the sunglasses. So
yeah, but and by the way, why is this relevant? Well, because Spotify, who I think very highly of and have nothing negative to say about, by the way, and have many dear friends who work there at very high levels. In fact, the Spotify filed a patent recently saying they're going to use your voice data to make better recommendations of the songs that you listen to next, and a kind of dynamic playlist making. So, for example, it can hear in your voice that you're happy or sad, and maybe when you're sad, it'll influence the songs they play for you next. And that was of such a concern to some people that the guitar player from Rage Against the Machine decided to do a campaign, because Rage Against the Machine is on Spotify, and there's a lot of musicians on Spotify, millions of them. And so they did together a letter collecting, a lot of the artists on Spotify, to tell Spotify, please don't use this technology. It's a little too concerning. It's a little too Black Mirror and dystopian. And but the fact of the matter is, these data companies, as I keep reminding everybody, and you're going to see this, keep this in mind as we read these headlines for the next year, these data companies like TikTok, like Spotify, like Google, Apple, all of them are now going to turn on these microphones and cameras and be able to extract a whole new level of data that they previously didn't have, to empower their ad networks and their recommendations and their machine learning algorithms, and make them far more powerful than they were previously, giving them an even more unfair advantage against the undata companies they're competing against, like the medical companies, like the insurance companies, et cetera, et cetera. So that, and the banks even as well, because there's a lot of fintechs who have a lot of data that they will use to fight the traditional old banking systems, who aren't really driven by data. So that's why this is also interesting, and a lot of sensors that you're gonna be wearing on your wrist. Oh, and by the way, that's maybe one of the biggest headlines of the last 24 hours. Facebook is coming out with a smartwatch. And why is Facebook coming out with a smartwatch? You think they really want to help you know the time? No, they want that juicy data that they can get from all the sensors in that watch, because it's very expensive to make a smartphone. It's relatively incredibly cheap to make a smartwatch, but the smartwatch can tell, because, by the way, Apple owns the phone and Google owns the phone. And lately, Google and Apple are shutting off the data to Facebook, that Facebook needed to collect from those devices, like where you are, because that's very important data to Facebook, and they used to be able to get it from your phones. And now Google and Apple are saying, you know what, Mark Zuckerberg, go fuck yourself. Let your company die. We're going to kill your company, and we're no longer going to let you have all the data that you used to have, like knowing where all these users are all the time and everything they're doing through their phones. Because, by the way, Facebook bought an Israeli company, which was this clever little secret startup that tapped into all the other apps on your phone, because they had these backdoor APIs, and they were able to extract all kinds of amazing data from your phone without officially being known that it was being funneled to Facebook. And Apple and Google figured this out, and they're like, fuck Facebook. We're now going to cut them out. No more candy for you, Facebook. No more ice cream for you. The party's over for you. No more data for you. We're now going to architect our platforms, our devices, in new ways that cut off your lifeblood of your company, which is the data to power your ad network. That's what's happening behind the scenes, which no tech journalist has figured out yet, by the way. Ah, shit. Why didn't we try and build a phone? Well, in fact, they did try to build a Facebook phone around 2010, and it flopped gloriously. But they need to know where you are all the time and what you're doing and what you're saying, and they need to build a device to capture that data. So they're building a smartwatch. They just announced it about 12 hours ago. And you better believe that thing's going to have a microphone on it. And you better believe that microphone's going to be on all the time, listening to everything you say. And you better believe they're going to use all the data of all the sensors that they can pack into that thing. Again, far cheaper than a phone, because they know you're not going to buy a new Facebook phone. They already tried that. But a smartwatch that they could subsidize and essentially try and give you for free, just like they are subsidizing the price of their VR headsets, because they want. And by the way, this is the name of the game of these big, very wealthy tech companies. What they do is they intentionally lower the price. They even are willing to lose money on the hardware that they give you in the form of the watch or the VR headset, for two reasons. One, because they want to block out any potential competitors, and they essentially are doing that. HTC Vive is no longer able to compete with Facebook Oculus, because Facebook Oculus for $399 is a ridiculous deal. And it is a ridiculous deal because they're subsidizing it, because they know they're going to monetize from the data they are able to collect from it, which is genius, right? But they also are going to do the same with this watch. They're probably going to make this watch for $99, because they know that the data they can get, if they could, they'll give it to you for free, because they know that they'll get all that amazing data, and they need that data. So I bet this watch is going to be incredibly well priced, and it's going to pay for itself. It's going to be an ad-based kind of model yet again, because that now they need a new way to get all that data that Google and Apple are now strategically trying to pry from their hands.
Great insight, Sutter.
Comments?
Just for a bit of fun, I am reflecting on our friend who wrote in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the guy who said venture capital is on its way out. If you just...
Oh, yes. Yeah. So precisely that as well. Yeah, there was a headline 24 hours ago from the New York Times from a guy named Kevin, who said, this old business model of Uber and these startups who used to... Uber, by the way, also used to lower the price of their rides and intentionally lost money on every ride, because they wanted to capture the market and they wanted to block out competitors. And it was very hard for you, JT, or Cheryl, or Rhonda, or Shahin, to make an Uber competitor, because if you wanted to compete in that game, you need to raise hundreds of millions of dollars so that you could pay for part of the ride that every rider is doing. And by Uber and Lyft, by doing that, basically made it impossible for more competitors to come into the market. And they waited and waited and waited 10 years. And they realized, okay, no one else is trying to compete with us now. We have the market share. The market has matured. It's just the two of us, Uber and Lyft in the US. And now coast is clear. Nobody else is coming. No, we've locked it down. It's officially a duopoly. Okay, great. Now we can start raising the prices, and they are raising the prices because no one else is going to come into the market and compete. The prices are going up. Now they're becoming profitable, as they always planned they would do from before they even built the first initial app. And the New York Times is saying, the golden age of raising lots of VC money and having these VC subsidized businesses, era is coming to an end. Say what, you idiot? No, this started in Japan 100 years ago on their razors.
Yeah, and there's a nice link to your previous story, Tyler.
Anybody who went to business school knows exactly how this game works. And this will continue for the foreseeable future until we're replaced by cockroaches. What are you talking about? This era is over.
Because there's a little acronym, right, for the simple amongst us that I use, which is DAD, right? Devices, algorithms, and data. The first D in that is Tyler's previous point of like, stick it out at 99 quid. You're subsidizing it, and you're just going to suck up all the data and crunch it through your algorithms. I mean, why did I bring that up? I memean, VCs are going to need to do the first D in DAD till I don't know when. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's just part of the problem that the journalists who cover this space don't understand the economics of tech, and it's because they went to journalism school and not business school.
Well, yeah, I mean, an entrepreneur is not going to quit their job to write for tech, right?
Right. And then here, although due to the power of Clubhouse, we have people who used to run startups who are now sharing how the game's played in a way that totally confounds the journalists. And we just have to call them out from time to time. I mean, once in a while, there's plenty of fantastic stories to be written in tech right now that unfortunately are not being written around why is Facebook actually doing the SmartWatch, which I just revealed for you here. But you're not going to hear that in any articles, unfortunately, because who drives me crazy.
Tyler, we have a lot of listeners, by the way. I get a lot of DMs from former journalists, right, that listen to our show and want to reinvent the game, right? They get it. And so there's some very, very smart people out there who, used to be journalists in, some of the BBC, other places, and now are seeing that there's just a whole new way of doing that work and a more, authentic 360-degree kind of way of doing that work.
Tyler.
Yeah. And
Tyler,
here,
I just actually tweeted something because actually I believe that the VC will get a very different boost now with governments backing. So in the past it was more private and private plays of VCs investing in and betting on some unicorns, the spray and pray. But now with the government going really behind for national security and for, even power play on a global field, I think you might see a lot of money coming in, which is a not for profit money. It's much more a geopolitical push for VC on the tech space.
Not maybe. That's precisely what China's doing. Yeah, and China's writing and the other countries are taking note. And I went on. You weren't with us in the previous meeting that we had 7 hours ago, where I said precisely this. I went on the big rant about how when the big American tech companies, and by the way, the headline right now, I'll tweet this out for you: Facebook's first smartwatch that they're secretly working on will reportedly have a detachable camera. Oh, geez, you think so? Why would they put a camera on this thing? AKA juicy data. That's why there's a goddamn camera on that thing, and that's why there's a microphone on that thing. If you understand why they're releasing the thing, then you can bet every penny you ever made that they're going to have a camera on that thing, because that's what it's all about. It's not about the goddamn watch. It's not about telling the time. They're not trying to help their users tell time. They're trying to extract data from users. That's what that device is. It's a data collection, sucking device. I mean, that's the whole point of that device. So anyway, but back to your point, Florian, when China, of course, all the big tech companies tried to get into China, and Google was there briefly for a minute, and Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg went over there, met with Xi Jinping, stood on stage, spoke fluent Mandarin because his wife speaks Mandarin, and wowed the crowd, and begged on his can't imagine how much Mark wanted to get into China and was willing to do anything. And he understands he would have to give them full control and block any mention of Tiananmen Square and everything that China wants. He knows that. And it's the same thing. We see this now in Russia, where Russia is dictating the terms of what all these social apps have to remove, and they're happy to comply because they want to stay there and make the money. So same thing's going to happen in India. They're all going to comply with India because that's just way too much money to turn down, even though their employees back home are telling them, don't kowtow to Modi. That's not democratic. That's not freedom of speech. And the CEOs are like, shut up. It's a lot of money. You like your job? Shut up. It's all billions of dollars. Don't rock the boat. Okay? So they're going to say, okay, boss, whatever you say, Modi, we're just here to be friends. But more importantly, when they tried to get into China and China said, thank you, no thank you, because we're going to build our own Facebook and our own Google, and they did. They very much did. You have Weibo, which is Twitter. You have, what's their Google? Baidu. And they've got an Amazon, which is Alibaba. They replaced all of it. And they're glad they did. Boy, are they glad they did. And boy, are they cracking down on their own tech companies right now in terms of privacy and everything else. And when those companies got too big, the CEOs disappeared. Hey, Jack Ma, how's it going? Quick shout out to Jack Ma. How's it going, Jack? So, these governments, in China's case, really like being able to control what's going on with their tech companies, and they love the fact that those tech companies are massive and huge and growing beyond China, as TikTok is now in America and was all over India. And those apps got so popular in India that India's like, thank you, no thank you, get these Chinese apps out of India. And they blocked 170 Chinese apps, and now they're growing their own domestic replacements to those Chinese apps, and they are going to be very happy with the result of that, from a data standpoint and from a national security standpoint, but more so years from now when all these unicorns are popping off every 30 minutes like we've been covering, and they're going to realize, holy shit, we've got 100 unicorns now. How did this happen? And when you have these 100 fintech and e-commerce unicorns popping off all over India, it starts this economic steam engine, right? So India is going to be really glad about that, and you better believe every country's watching how that plays out and is like, shit, we need our own versions of all of these apps. And why don't we, as the government, fund, precisely to Florian's point, why leave it to the private investors to get all that juicy money from those unicorns happening when we can get into the game? And indeed they are, just as China did with their unicorns, by the way. So it's that's the new game, how it's going to be going forward. And by the way, that's why it's interesting to watch all of how the EU is positioning itself in restricting all of these big American tech giants in the EU. Because really, deep down, and I'm there, I work there, I run one of the biggest tech conferences in the EU. And in fact, I run the biggest monthly tech event in the EU every month. And I'm telling you, the conversations on the ground, and I meet with the politicians very regularly, is, when's Europe going to build its Google and its Facebook and its Apple? Maybe we could regulate a way to make that happen.
How inspiring.
So that's the game in 2021. And there's just huge data. And by the way, they say, actually, no, we're not banning Google and Facebook and Amazon because we want to build our own out of economic greed reasons. We're doing it for data, privacy, security reasons. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, China said the same thing. So, welcome to 2021, and this is Tech News Around the World. Click on the title of the room. And if, by the way, do you want to be more beautiful or happy or maybe pounds or kilograms? Simply click on the title of the room.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Tyler.
Well, you are in the right place. Go ahead and click the title of the room and join the Tech News Club. And boy, oh boy, will you notice a difference. Within a matter of...
I want to be richer. I want to be richer and wealthier.
Just click on the title of the room, join the Tech News Club, and watch money fall from the sky, my friends. That's how it works.
Results may vary.
Your results may vary.
For only $19.99.
Yeah, well, today it's free. Today it's free. You can join.
Tyler, are you planning on doing any comedic work? Because you're really very, very funny sometimes. You might want to do an
I'm just saying, today and today only, you can join the Tech News Club for the low, low, low price of absolutely nothing.
Zero.
And
hey, Tyler,
absolutely zero.
Personal testimony here. Before I was on the 90-day Tech News plan, I didn't know anything. Yes. But now,
I know.
90 days, I'm here.
Yes.
And you look way more handsome. 90 days.
And by the way, that hair on his head wasn't there. 90 days ago. And I'm just glad to see the results that you're getting as a member of Tech News.
Is it working on you as well?
It's
It's
not, well,
sort of.
for some reason, I'm doing something
No,
wrong
no, no. I'm going
myself.
to PTR something. You'll see how Tyler looks like when he has hair.
Yeah, Cheryl's going to show you what can happen if you stay. Yes.
Just PTR, you can see what results you can get.
No, Tyler, this is what happens when you quit a day.
Yes.
Okay, PTR.
I missed a couple days of Tech News, and look what happened to me.
PTR.
PTR, look at Cheryl's new photo, and you can see the before and after. This was before I missed Tech News, and I missed a few days on Sunday. And you see what happens if you don't come every day? You don't let this happen to you. Don't make the same mistake I did.
Please, Tyler, I don't want to lose my hair.
Join us here at Tech News every day. You don't want to lose all your hair. Lakeisha, Lakeisha especially.
It was me,
yeah. Don't let this happen to you. Don't let this happen to you and all your loved ones.
Press the button.
This is your chance, folks. If you want to be happy, you want to be fulfilled, you want to be taller, slimmer, find the love of your life, don't let the opportunity pass you by yet again. This is your chance.
This guy.
Just go ahead, do the right thing, click on the title of the room, join the Tech News Club. You'll be glad you did, and we're happy to have you as part of the Tech News family here. So, and yeah, go ahead and anyone on stage want to share something from their part of the world, geographically, professionally, spiritually, metaphysically?
Virtually,
feel free. Yeah, pretty much any part of the world.
We're looking for somebody from the moon.
Yeah, if you happen to operate a Starbucks on the moon, we would love to hear from you. So if you know anyone, by the way, that is the magic of Clubhouse. You have that little plus button in the bottom right-hand corner. You can invite in anyone who you think has something valuable to contribute on stage, and that's how we do it here. I got more headlines beyond the Facebook watch with the detachable camera, which I got to tweet this out so that you can see how this journalist is enthralled about why Facebook is making a device, which I just tweeted out. And thank you. And by the way, everyone is sending in tweets and DMs, but better to send in tweets that I can retweet. But let's turn, Dan, if you're still with us, I know maybe he already had his bedtime. But we like to let Dan go first because he likes to cover the green tech news. We got the Facebook headline. We've got, we did cover Biden signing the executive order to remove the ban on TikTok and WeChat, but there will be an investigation, as there should be, because they're now doing voice prints and face prints. And here's a really interesting article about a little app you never heard of called Fan House, like OnlyFans, but without the porn. So it's sort of like Patreon. It's a way for people to collect payments from their fans in what they call the creator economy. And so Fan House, I'm gonna tweet this out so you can do the deep dive on this. This is quite the hot topic on the interwebs today. The CEO of Fan House is now saying that the creator economy is running into the Apple tax, and Fan House is fighting back. Fan House wants to keep sending 90% of payments to its creators, but is finding that very hard to do because Apple is insisting on getting a 30% cut of all of these payments. And that's why Apple is fighting with Epic Games, the maker of Fortnite, in a very huge case, one of the biggest court cases in tech history, in fact. And Epic Games is also being joined by Spotify and Match.com and others who are all accusing Apple of being unfair and charging 30%. And Fan House is entering this debate by us adding a new dimension, which is Fan House itself is really just helping creators get payments from their fans. And they themselves are just an enabler. And Apple's saying not so fast. If there's a financial transaction happening on your iPhone app, then we're entitled to 30% of the fees that people pay creators when purchases are made through the iPhone app. And Fan House is saying that's not fair. People are using this platform to survive. And according to Jasmine Rice, a Fan House creator and one of the platform's co-founders, I use this to pay my bills for my family. I use this to pay my mom's medical expenses. like Apple gives a shit about that. So Jasmine, one of the co-founders, has done a very lengthy Twitter thread, which I'm now going to retweet, so you can read her Twitter thread, where she goes into the deep dive of Fan House and her now brewing battle with Apple. So it already has 5.6 thousand retweets and 23,000 likes. And she says she found, I just sent it to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And Jasmine says she founded a Fan House app 8 months ago to empower creators to monetize their content. We pay creators 90% of their earnings. Now Apple is threatening to remove Fan House from the App Store unless we give them 30% of the creator earnings. This is theft and exploitation, she says. Apple, I hope you read these stories about how your policy would hurt people in need. Do you care? Again, we ask that you take 30% of our revenues, the app's revenues, not the creator's earnings. And she has an interesting point there. Because Apple's saying, no, we get 30% of all the transactions in the app. And she's saying, well, wouldn't it be more fair if you just took 30% of our earnings, the app's earnings, and the app is only taking 10% of the creator's earnings? And then she says, or maybe you could grant us an exemption similar to you do for Patreon, our competitor. And why is Patreon exempted? Well, maybe it's because their investors are friendly with some of the senior folks at Apple. Maybe, kind of maybe. I know how, just giving a little tip again, something that the typical tech reporters are going to miss. But she being a very early startup, not having powerful investors, and now you understand one of the key advantages to having very powerful investors like Andreessen Horowitz, who are the backers of Clubhouse. Investors would be calling Apple and carving out an exemption similar to what Patreon and Netflix have done. So, it's a very interesting case to look at, how Apple is not treating apps. I think what she should do is really lean on that point of why is she being treated differently than Patreon, because essentially she's a competitor to Patreon. Essentially she's the same, and she's not going to live to compete with Patreon if she continues to have to pay that 30% tax. All the creators are going to leave her app and go to Patreon. And in that sense, Apple is becoming a bit of a kingmaker in deciding by giving Patreon an exception, then nobody's going to be able to compete with Patreon. And that's because Patreon's investors are friendly with Apple folks in some capacity. And that's what, by the way, tech journalists, if you want a good story, there's one for you. You're welcome. Go ahead and do that story. And we will happily retweet that story when you do it. And that would be a fun one to do. Other really interesting articles. Redeja, our friend, is now in a heated race with Poppy to share fantastic articles, and so is Nalormi, by the way. Apparently, there's breaking news that Nalormi is sending in now, and let's see if this is true. Nalormi sending in an article right now, 2 minutes ago, that Facebook Messenger, and Instagram and WhatsApp that all belong to the Facebook empire are all down. The outage also follows websites including Reddit, Amazon, and others. Going dark to software bug from content. This is from Fastly. Nalormi, this is 3 days old. That's not breaking news at all. Can somebody check if Facebook is down for them so that we can see if this...
Not done.
It's not done.
It was only down for like an hour when it happened. And they'd resolved the issue.
Yeah, but it says that this is from, by the way, it's not even Nalormi's fault, because this is the Independent in the UK reporting on news that is 3 days old.
Independent catching up on it.
The Fastly guy, the internet down, I guess is related.
Yeah, it's all about Fastly, the content distribution network that did go down.
There is something that's gone on in Holland that's pretty interesting, which came out from a couple of days ago.
Okay.
Privacy Watchdog recommends schools and ministries ditch Google. They want to remove. They're actually making a strong stand to remove Google and the cloud, so Google services such as email and cloud storage, because they don't comply with European privacy laws. And they're criticizing the software giant with unusually strongly worded Watchdog says that use of Google services such as Gmail, Meet, Sheets, Docs, and Classroom are widely used, but that the schools and universities do not know how and where and to what purpose the personal data of the pupils and students is processed. This is making it unlawful. And the Dutch ministries are kind of getting on top of this now. So it looks like they've got some concerns over the growing influence of again, like you've said this before, Europe is getting very, very they're getting very, very scared and a little bit apprehensive over how much these American software companies are coming into Europe, and sort of they're concerned with the privacy of Europe. So they're really kind of putting in safety guards.
If I might just jump in right there.
Go ahead.
If you go back in my tweets a couple of days, you'll be able to find a link to the Cloud Act of 2018, and that'll answer all the questions as to why the Netherlands is doing that. And that's been a growing concern for the European Union and the United Kingdom and the Middle East for a while now. And they're acting up on it.
They're still on top. Now they're still doing it. Apparently they're not getting very far if they're coming back around.
Yeah, just so they're acting on it now. And the entire reason for it is that any tech giant that has its headquarters in the United States has to, without mutual agreement, hand over any data that is held on any server anywhere in the world, even if on foreign soil, to any agency in the United States that comes over and demands it, and that's a breach of foreign sovereignty, and hence they're all a little overwhelmed by the information, which was public information 2018, but they just didn't realize it until now.
Got it. Thanks for Oz. Tyler, another added one that's kind of fun, and because we're seeing this also. A headline from a couple of days ago is Dutch foundation representing over 60,000 parents takes TikTok to court. A Dutch foundation representing parents from around Europe are suing Chinese-owned video platform TikTok for failing to protect safety of children and breaching European advertising privacy rules. Some 64,000 parents have registered claims with nonprofit market information foundation SOMI to a combined amount of 1.4 billion. And it says the court ruling is best way to make TikTok mend its way. SOMI co-founder Cora Witvliet told RTL News a judge has in its power to immediately stop these practices and those of other platforms. We've sent letters to TikTok and the European supervising bodies, but nothing happened.
Yeah, you're going to start seeing, as this is what's happening in the EU, is the EU is putting out lots of fines. Google just picked up a huge fine, and they've had lots of fines over the years. They will continue to get lots of fines, and the tech companies will continue to laugh and wipe their ass with the money that they pay those fines with, because they could give a fuck about $1 billion fine. So yeah, it's a fun way to play it. You did some data issues, and the way our rules are, you're going to have to pay some fines, and the tech companies just laugh themselves silly and say, here, take the money. Because by the time this court case happened, we made 50,000 times that money that you just fined us for. Go ahead and fine us again next year for another $1 billion. We're more than happy to pay it. Thank you for playing. But you're right. The parents can get together with the government, and the government might even tell them, hey, let's get some of this juicy free money from these tech companies that are abusing our privacy. And now you've got lawyers getting in the game the same way that these class action lawyers did, like Bill Larack in the US, who did these class action lawsuits against big tobacco, knowing they were going to win. And they knew that the government was already on their side in wanting to push against this. And the government couldn't really stop tobacco, but private citizens could sue. And so Bill Larack, the big class action trial lawyer, knew that the government was going to hand him the case as a win. Great, let's go get all of the consumers who want to get in on this juicy money and sue. And they did, and they got the biggest settlement in history. And you're going to see the same thing start to happen with big tech, like big tobacco in the EU, where these companies are violating things, and they're going to win these cases. Now the lawyers are going to have a heyday and just get together big groups of parents who have been affected. Hey, are your kids using TikTok too much? Great, join the case. Let's go get it, because the government's clearly going to give us the money and force TikTok to pay us. And TikTok's going to be like, fine, that's fine. Have at it, because we're going to make 10 times that money in the time that it took to do that trial. Great, let's keep going. Let's do this again next year, everybody. It's been fun. Everybody wins. unless you do actually really make real actual change and ban the app from the EU and make your own European version of TikTok or whatever, that isn't able to do this, et cetera, et cetera. Otherwise, it's just going to be business as usual. Everyone's going to win. And thanks for playing. So to sync with Facebook and get all of your juicy Facebook data into TikTok. And that will be interesting to see how that plays out. And then somebody named Pranav Mukal sent in an article that this is really interesting. And I will tweet this out from the Tech News Twitter account, that this coming in from the Indian Express. They are saying the Nigerian government is joining the Indian app Koo, which is the replacement to Twitter in India. And this is very interesting. What this means for Twitter's India-made rival. Remember I said India banned a bunch of apps, and they're making Indian local replacements to those apps, and they're now realizing they're very glad they did. Well, there's already an Indian version of Twitter, because Twitter is starting to get in a bunch of hot water with Modi's team. And this Indian-made Twitter recently got a whole bunch of funding, $30 million, on the same day that the Indian representatives were down at Twitter's headquarters banging on their door, wanting to know why they had flagged some of the government's tweets as being potentially, untrue. And Koo now, it's according to this headline, Nigerian government has joined Koo, the Indian version of Twitter, because Koo is very friendly to Modi's team and to probably any government, much more friendly than Twitter's being, because Twitter's being a headache to these governments by not removing content that they are asking to remove, and by removing content that they don't want removed. Koo's not going to do that. Koo's going to be a much more loyal servant to India and now to Nigeria, and they're going to do whatever the government wants. No problem, boss. We are the much more friendly social network, and whatever you do, whatever you tell us to do, we're going to do. You say jump, we say how high. And so now the Nigerian government loves Koo, because Koo's going to do whatever it tells them to do. And now Nigeria has banned Twitter and now has Koo. And the only real question is, which country will be next that will now tell Twitter, hey, Twitter, we've got other options. We've got Koo now. Now, are you going to remove these tweets or not?
So I think there's a thing there that I just want to quickly state. So whether it will work or not remains to be seen. But what we have to put into context is the number of Nigerians in the diaspora who deal and who have business dealings with Nigerians back home. So rough figures, there's about 15 million. Please don't quote me on this. This is from the University of Google. There's about 15 million Nigerians in the diaspora, possibly more.
I go to that same university,
cool.
by
I
the way.
also go to the
I have a
University of
PhD.
YouTube from time to time, but please never check medical diagnosis on those universities, because then you will suffer from absolutely everything. But getting back to the point, so we have to check that. We also have to check what the remittances back home are. So PwC estimates that there's about 25.5 billion remittances, this is, or it will grow to that amount of time. So there's a lot of money going back home. There's a lot of people working outside of Nigeria who are constantly dealing in stuff going back home. Will they join Koo? I.e., will they join Koo in order to do that if the Nigerian massive public migrates to Koo? Now, the issue that we have is that some Nigerian government members, so the AGP, whatever, are migrating to Koo, but the Nigerian populace itself, the Nigerian Twitter users, are not. So how does the government intend to actually bring those people over? They've decided that they're not going. So how will this happen? How will it take an effect? And if it does take an effect, you're quite right. What does that mean for Twitter? Personally, I don't really see it happening in the way that the government wants it to happen. I think there was something that I also wanted to check out. I'm not quite sure about it yet, but apparently Twitter has now added a VPN option onto Twitter itself. So you don't need to necessarily hide the option. I'm still checking that out. I'm not sure. But that's an interesting development, because then you don't have to go somewhere else to get a VPN.
Very interesting. Yeah. Because why this is more interesting than it appears. Here's why. Because you're seeing an instance where a government is trying to ban a technology, and the technology is trying to sustain itself. And we saw this with the Pirate Bay, and we saw this with the Silk Road, where the U.S. government wanted to shut down this Silk Road app where people were selling drugs and all kinds of crazy shit. And the government took the U.S. government and the FBI and the CIA a long time to track down the person responsible for the Silk Road, and there's a really cool documentary about it. And eventually, that person was found as a result of their ex-girlfriend, kind of exposing who was behind it. And that person foolishly was kind of singularly running it by themselves. So when they apprehended the individual, bye Silk Road. Pirate Bay was a little bit different. The government did try to shut down Pirate Bay. The problem is Pirate Bay is run by 3 people, and they were intelligently decentralized it enough so even though those 3 people went to jail, it was still able to run. In the background, still runs to this day at the ire and as a big middle finger and a poke in the eye to the CIA and the FBI and the international intelligence community and everybody else who cannot shut it down, even if they want to. And that's interesting because in the case of Nigeria trying to shut down Twitter, it will be interesting to see if, even though it's now illegal and you can be apprehended and punished for using Twitter, could they not do the same to Bitcoin? And of course they could, and of course they will. And that's why it's very interesting to contemplate what's going to happen with Bitcoin. Will governments ban it? Will they make it illegal? Will they punish you and even jail you? Yes, they will eventually. But will it be able to maintain itself? And that's why it's fun to watch what Twitter's doing. Of course, they are very different technologies, but now you know why Jack Dorsey, about 3 days ago at Bitcoin 2021 in Miami, said, we're thinking about doing a blockchain version of Twitter. Oh, really? Well, why would you do that, Jack? Because eventually governments are, since he said that 3 days ago, you've now 2 days ago not got a country trying to shut it down, making it illegal, make it difficult. And eventually they'll get to the servers and beat them with a baseball bat and shut that shit down. But if the shit's run on the blockchain, you can't go around and be hitting those servers because they're hidden all over the planet and duplicated thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of times. It's not possible to go hit tens of thousands of servers that you can't track down. So that's where the blockchain and Bitcoin becomes very interesting to see how, if
Sorry,
the
I
government
just
will
wanted
be
to
able
add
to
another
try and
thing
control
here.
it.
So first, it's not illegal yet. There is no legality around it. They have proposed a law. So what they're doing actually is just bizarre because they're acting as if they're still a military dictatorship as opposed to a civilian government. So there will be plenty of legal challenges, and there are actually members of the government who are not, as in state governors who are not taking part in this. It is a federal republic after all. But here's the funny thing out of what you from what you've said. If they move it to the blockchain, a government like the government we're talking about will actually throttle the internet. They will throttle the internet for it because actually they don't make their money from modern communications. They don't make their money from anything like this. Their money is in oil. That's it. They don't really care what they don't care about furthering anything. They don't care
Right.
about future anything. They get their hospital visits in the West. The only thing that will hurt them is if countries in the West say, right, diplomatically, we will now not allow you to come in and get your hospital visits. We will send your children back from your top universities, and even all your endowments, we will cancel them. And that is not going to happen. But it will be interesting. You're quite right. It will be interesting to see, because I will put it to you now. If Twitter moves to the blockchain, they will throttle the internet. Point blank.
Time will tell. And let's welcome Ade Tomiyawa to the stage. And that sounds like a very Nigerian name. Am I right, Ade? Mr. Ade, are you there? Earth to Ade.
Ade Tomiwa.
Come in, Ade.
Calling once.
Ade Tomiwa,
He's having a snooze.
welcome to the stage.
He's having a good nap.
Hang in there.
Ade, jump in if you can. Hang out on stage. Hopefully your connection will come back.
Yeah, these connections are hard sometimes, but welcome to the stage, sir.
Yeah, but... Oh, there he is. Ade, are you there? Flash your mic. Or unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
we
Welcome,
can hear
great.
Rosas.
you.
It's nice to be here. Actually,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
that is a Nigerian accent, my
Of
friends.
course,
Yeah.
I'm a Nigerian.
Yeah, I know. I can hear that accent. I can hear your
Of
laugh, my
course,
friend.
thank you very much. Actually, I
Yeah.
wanted to speak about the topic regarding the ban of Twitter in Nigeria. And
Yes, please
the
do.
position of Nigerian government. Of course, we've had ups and downs on the issue, and there are a lot of state governors that already violated the executive order. And I can tell you, this is one of those things that most of our leaders, especially at the federal level, that they make all this fire brigade approach instead of addressing issues. Maybe objectively, some of them they will just rush into the action just to probably safeguard a certain policy or decision they want to make. So banning of Twitter, it's just that government pronounced the ban of Twitter in Nigeria. Everybody is using Twitter. People are using Twitter via VPN, and they cannot block that. And again, we have a government that is not popular. And again, whatever the government does, the citizen really did not really trust the government to that extent that we now encourage citizens to migrate to an alternative platform of Twitter. People will not just accept it. But again, it is good, sometimes when issues like this, when they come up, it gives government itself the opportunity to understand the level of acceptability of its policies. So we've seen governors, state governors like the first speaker that spoke about Nigeria said what she said. We have state governors that said, "Oh no, this is a bad policy." And again, Twitter is one of the platforms that most of the politicians in this part of the world use to get back to their followers, most of their electorate, to engage people. It's one of the platforms. So it will be very difficult for government. I guess Mr. President is doing that because he's unable to use Twitter, because we don't believe that our president has the technical know-how to handle mobile phone or perhaps use Twitter. Perhaps there are people using it for him. So those ones that, like the governor of Kaduna State, the governor of even the governor of Oyo State, we've had series of governors, even members of the Senate that spoke against the policy. I'm very sure it's one of those policies that they cannot stand the test of time. But it is good that we have things like this happening at this time, because again, when it creates an opportunity for both government and the citizen to understand what is currently happening at the uh, maybe at international world, or the contemporary happening within the society. But I can tell you from what is happening in our society, in our country here today, it is good that government is saying they want to ban, but it is good as well that the citizens are saying, no, you cannot take Twitter from us, because we have many people, I can say many people that are making their earning through Twitter. Many of them, all these the social media influencers, they make money through Twitter. Government cannot give them job. Government cannot create the enabling environment. They created it for themselves, and this is the platform they use. So it will be I'm very sure it is something that cannot work. We should just, of course, we can talk about it, but it is something that it cannot stand the test of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ade. I have to say, I could listen to you talk for hours. I love the Nigerian accent, and I love hearing how things are going there. I gotta get over there, and hopefully, are you in
Yes, I'm in
Lagos?
Lagos. We'll be glad to welcome you to Nigeria. We are one of the most hospitable country in the world. We will be glad to welcome
Indeed, I
you.
hope
Sorry,
to
Of
meet you
course,
someday, Ade.
Tyler, I just wanted to say to
Um,
you, that's a Southwest accent. So if you speak to someone from the east, and particularly if you speak to someone from the north, it will be very, very different. So do be aware of that.
The friend who helps me with my events for the past 8 years has that same southern accent, as does Babatunde Olatunji, the famous drummer from southern Nigeria, who I'm a huge fan of as well. That's why he's part of the.
He's Yoruba.
What tribe is he from? Yes, Europe. It is Yoruba, and I think this gentleman might be not far off because exactly, yeah. So it's such a cool accent. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and that's what I love about Clubhouse and Tech News. That's why we do Tech News around the world, because we're able to get people literally from Nigeria to tell us really what's going on there, and not just Nigeria, all over the place. And there's news happening everywhere, all over the world, in such interesting ways today. And I've got, in the past 10 minutes, Poppy and Rhonda and Johan and Radeja and Cheryl and everybody are sharing some fantastic headlines that I'm dying to share with you right now. I just tweeted out an article about 3D printed houses made entirely from mud, which look absolutely gorgeous, I have to say. There's been a lot of 3D printed house projects over the years, but not any nearly as cool looking as these. I actually would love to try and do this. And you have to see how they do it. It's quite fascinating. But unfortunately, we don't have images in Clubhouse, which is at TNATW. And thank you for sharing that article from Wired. And then SoftBank is launching an accelerator program for diverse startup founders in Europe. SoftBank, and by the way, it's being done with my friend Sophia Benz in Stockholm, which I will bring her in here hopefully tomorrow at this time to tell us all about it. So SoftBank Investment Advisors, which manages the Vision Fund, will launch its diversity-focused Emerge Accelerator program in Europe. They partnered with Speed Invest and other venture capital investors in Europe to help run the European cohort. The program is open to companies with at least one founder who identifies as non-white or female or LGBTQ+, disabled, or refugees. And that's the SoftBank's new diversity fund, which again, I'll try and get Sophia to join us tomorrow. Matter of fact, I'll ping her right now and see if she will join us right now. Let's see. But I imagine she likes to have a little bit of warning ahead of time. But let's just give it a shot. But I bet we'll get her for tomorrow. Yeah. So the next article.
A short question, Tyler. Since we are quite a few that are distributing articles to you, do you have any statistics of how many you actually get each day?
No, but I would put it at around 200. Okay. And I'm just cherry picking my favorites and resharing them to the ever-growing list of people who follow the Twitter account. And looking right now, we're now just about at 2,300, and we add about 100 a day. And if you want to be happy and successful and beautiful, you too can follow the Twitter account today for the very low price of nothing. And you can get all of these fantastic articles that we retweet. And I retweet only the best and most interesting articles that everyone tweets in. And here's one right here, which Johan sent in, who you just heard his very sexy voice. Facebook is planning this smartwatch, and now it's being revealed that it has 2 cameras. And if you heard my rant about why Facebook is making this smartwatch, you know why it has 2 cameras. I'll leave it at that. And if you've just joined us in the last 10 minutes, it's because Facebook needs to get all of the data that they're no longer able to get from the Apples and Google phones, because Apple and Google no longer want to enable Facebook's ability to get all that data from them. It supports them, and it's a long story. You should have been here. We'll do it again tomorrow. But another article that just was sent in, and I'm retweeting, SpaceX's Starlink, which is one of the most important projects on the planet, where SpaceX is launching satellites willy-nilly up into the air to bring internet connectivity to the entire planet through satellites, and very fast connectivity, by the way. It's not cheap unless you have a base station and share it amongst your neighborhood. And then if for your whole neighborhood, sharing the price, it actually is quite cheap. But anyways, it's happening rather quickly. And they do have competitors from India and from Amazon, and China as well is planning to do their own global internet provider, although you can think about the crazy reasons why China would want to spread its internet internationally. That's a whole, we'll save that for another day. But SpaceX's Starlink is in talks with several airlines for in-flight Wi-Fi, which thank God that's finally happening. Elon Musk's satellite internet network is vying with OneWeb to put faster Wi-Fi on commercial airplanes. Thank you, Elon Musk. We love you. That is a Christmas gift to all of us geeks who like to be on the internet on our long international flights, as I do when I fly between Thailand and Sweden every month, which I plan to start doing again in August. Thank God for the vaccines, everybody. Another article that just came in, speaking of China, China now is denouncing the U.S. Senate factoring domestically. Beijing says the bill seeks to exaggerate so-called China threat and is full of Cold War thinking. China has denounced the U.S. Senate bill worth $250 billion that aims to boost American technology and manufacturing prowess as an example of the U.S. hyping up the so-called China threat and accused Washington of attempting to hinder its own Chinese development. The Senate on Tuesday overwhelmingly approved the Innovation and Competition Act in a rare show of unity in a chamber often filled with political division between Democrats and Republicans, which is true. Those two parties cannot agree on anything. They do agree on one thing. We need to focus on and pass a bill of $250 billion to ramp up and boost tech and manufacturing in the U.S., and China feels very threatened by this, apparently, by saying that it is fanning the flames of anti-Chinaism. This bill seeks to exaggerate the spread of so-called China threat to maintain global American hegemony using human rights and religion as excuses to interfere in China's domestic politics and deprive China of its legitimate development rights, is the quote. And I just tweeted that out so you can do the deep dive on that yourself. One of the responses is that there is no doubt that one thing that unites Americans these days is distrust of China and a determination to compete. The fact that infrastructure talks have stalled, but this bill has gone through, makes this pretty clear, says Leslie, the director of the U.S. and the Americas program at the London-based think tank called Chatham House. And it'll be interesting to see if the UK and other EU countries do similar measures. I bet that they will. Amazon faces a backlash over one of their new headlines that we covered about 4 days ago called Sidewalk. And you got to see this really cool video that I'm now tweeting out from the Tech News Twitter account about Amazon Sidewalk. What is Amazon Sidewalk? Well, if you missed that headline 4 days ago, Amazon is now going to enable all of its devices in your home and office to share your Wi-Fi to people you don't know walking past your house. Why would they do that? Well, because they have technologies like Tile, this little tracker, kind of a GPS tracker that you can put on your devices to track where your devices go, similar to Apple's new AirTags. But for that to work, it needs lots of Wi-Fi signals all over the neighborhoods. How can it get lots of Wi-Fi all over the neighborhoods? Well, it could force you, as somebody who has Wi-Fi, to unknowingly make it accessible to people walking around looking for their Tile device. And by the way, Amazon's not alone in doing this, but it was revealed, and they call this Amazon Sidewalk. And if you want to turn it off, it's on by default, and you're going to have to go into the buried settings that they intentionally obfuscate and turn it off. And now the headline is, 3 days later, Amazon faces backlash over Sidewalk technology. Amazon launched new technology called Sidewalk that connects supported devices together with your neighbors using a small part of your internet connection, but it has led to questions concerning consumer privacy, no doubt. And it'll be an interesting debate to see if people want to, because everyone could potentially benefit by letting their neighbors share a bit of their Wi-Fi, but it does get a little tricky, because what if your neighbor puts a Wi-Fi camera looking into your window using your own Wi-Fi? Then you can understand why things get a little awkward. Needs to be a little more thought out, perhaps. But here's a fun article. I think Johan sent this in as well. The first, an online animal catalog, lets you decode communication from other behaviors from everyone's favorite animal, the elephant, and so that the this Google Translate for elephants. And by the way, there's other initiatives to translate dog and cat sounds into kind of English or your language of choice. It's a fun article that I just tweeted out. It's by Scientific American. Thank you for that one, Johan. And I will pause there, but I'm going to save one really interesting headline, my two favorite headlines for later. But I want to see if anyone on stage has one they want to share from either MedTech, FinTech.
Hi, Tyler. I have two from Europe.
Yeah, Joanne, welcome back. Go ahead.
So it came out a few days ago. Google's Black Funders Fund, they've released the 30 people they funded, which is $200,000, no equity. So that was really interesting, the companies they chose, such a wide range. And to the earlier point about companies wanting to make their own versions, Usign raised 36 million to build a European alternative to DocuSign, which is also interesting because it's 36 million is a lot for signing documents, but that's my opinion. So I just thought those were really interesting about companies trying to build rather than go to America.
Yeah. By the way, the biggest competitor to DocuSign is my very dearest friend Lucas Duchko's startup out of Stockholm called Scrive. And they are kind of the DocuSign of Europe, kind of the leading that, and will likely be acquired by DocuSign so that DocuSign can maintain its situation. But there is kind of legal differences around the data and the legalization of digital signatures between the US and the EU. And that's why DocuSign might need to acquire Scrive, because it's built with the EU policies and privacy issues in mind. And but yeah, that's an interesting element in itself. But digital signatures is an absolutely tremendously booming space due to the rapid digitalization, due to COVID. People still need documents signed. Now to make them legal and do them digitally is a game changer for all kinds of contracts that people sign up for, that where clicking an I accept is not sufficient. Like when there's all kinds of examples. There's countless examples.
I know
it's one of
those. It's one of those.
And it's a tremendously booming
things
space
that over the pandemic really kind of took off, Joanne. I think you're so great to bring that up because people thought of it as kind of boring and like what's this going to do? It's just signing, but it was such a good user experience during
made
the
my
last
life
year
so
and a
easy,
half
right?
for so many people. Yeah. And it's one of those things, you until it's the consumers that drive it. If the experience gets smooth, I sold out a house in the US and I didn't have to go to the US, and it was and the digital processes behind the scenes and signature is or just authentication and signatures.
Startup founder, if you got safes you're doing, you got team members spread across the globe and you got to do shareholder agreements. It's so much easier than scanning and all this other stuff,
Yep, indeed, and especially especially when you start going international and everything, it gets crazy. But yeah, that's the Google There's what the real core of your point, Joanne, is more important, which is Google's investment into more diversity of entrepreneurs, and this is a huge effort at SoftBank and Google. And I watch these things, so to me it seems like they're everywhere. But I think hopefully the word gets out that these funds, and to that point, people often ask, why is it so important that we get more diversity in the entrepreneurs and in the investors? And my favorite argument, and there's lots of really good arguments, is that the problems that we need to solve in the next decade or two around water and food and energy and these really big humanitarian issues are going to require we need everybody empowered to be able to try and create solutions for these things, because we have enough dog walking apps and dating apps and photo sharing apps, except video games, etc. And it is interesting that when the people who apply for these types of UN global goal related problems and solutions, you start to see more diverse founders that want to solve those problems, and that's why let's help make sure that they have a ticket to the party or to a seat at the table. So it's I applaud it.
Yeah,
So,
it's very
Joanne?
sorry,
interesting.
just I'm sorry. Sorry. I just wanted to say, actually, there's and also a bigger reason around that, and one of that is when we look at the way that products were designed, and actually we sold products back in the day. It was, this is the product. Here you are. Use it. There is no other option, or you are limited by options. And whether that was a suitable product or not was irrelevant. People would hack around it, and I'll give makeup as an example. So for a lot of black women, they didn't get foundation that was the right color for them. So what they did was they would have to buy two products from the same person, right, or from the same manufacturer rather, and mix the colors themselves. Now that works in the interest of the manufacturer because, hey, I'm now selling one more bottle than is necessary. But also it meant that because they didn't have choice, it meant that they would always come back, right? So there was no incentive for them to actually create products specifically for them. Now the world has changed. People have greater access to raw materials. If I wanted to be a makeup manufacturer or make makeup for myself, it's a heck of a lot easier nowadays for me to get the raw materials, to get the knowledge for combining that, and literally just doing my own thing. So for bigger companies to actually get involved, they actually need to start looking at those areas that they have neglected. And we saw that from when Rihanna literally created a new makeup line. Tyler, I know you're really into this. I know that you wear a lot of makeup. when Rihanna created her own makeup line, creating foundation for both the extremely light women, so women who so we would say albinos. I'm not sure if that's PC. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Who couldn't get the lightest foundation that they needed, to extremely dark skinned women. They now just could get one bottle, and immediately we saw the effect in companies like L'Oreal, who immediately started updating their products and then streamlining for those people as well. So what we have is a situation where it is a lot easier for people to look for an alternative. And so it serves the interest of bigger companies to say, let me go into that place, provide funding for these people, because I don't know where the next biggest market is. I have neglected these people for so long, or I've neglected this market segment because these market segments would hack around for a solution previously. Now there are other companies which are coming in, are able to supply these people directly. So if I want to be part of this change, I better bring on these people who are actually these diverse people who intimately know those people and are able to speak their language. So I think it's a hell of, it's basically recognizing that the world requires different things that we are actually not attuned for, because for so long
I
we've
think
just been
Joanne,
creating these one
Joanne,
products. Sorry.
Joanne, did you want to come back on that? Sorry, I didn't mean to sound you. I just I didn't want to. Yeah, Joanne.
Um, yeah, I was just going to say, so having done that Google application and was not successful, not taking it personal, Google now has a ton of data of like over 800 Black founders in Europe, which is,
Ooh.
and the application was intense. They were asking for everything and blood. So I'd be really interested to know what they do the next round, because they only picked 30 out of that 800.
Well, they got all the data. So
You know what would be
it's can
you
I
could
get
do
sorry, that's
you
that
could do the world's largest black hackathon, by the way. That would be fantastic. Like,
yeah, but that's the thing, right? It's like we sometimes we're trusting these big companies that they are in it for like they're in it for introducing diversity or all of that kind of stuff. And for me, I just think it's always about the money. It's always about the market. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm not anti-capitalistic. Neither am I for it. I'm just a grain of sand in the big world. But I just think a lot of the time when we say, oh, there's this new fund about diversity and whatever, it's fine. But for me, it's always about the money behind it and the data behind it. And as Joyanne has rightfully said, they had all these applications asking for really intimate detail, which is now their own, it's their own data now, and they can use to develop products or do as they please. It's an interesting thing.
Tyler, you might have an echo. I just sorry to interrupt everyone. Sorry, Tyler, you might have an echo.
okay.
Somebody just not echo, but
Okay.
there's just a feedback
Got it.
coming on. Thanks.
I got it. Thanks for that.
This
So
is Michelle speaking. I don't know if I can quickly add something to
Michelle?
that. I just want to
Yeah,
say
go.
that this kind of D&I startup funding programs are very common. I guess we just hear less about it from Amazon, Facebook, and Google. But I do understand the concern around the data and so on. But I think we should see where there's a win-win. And if they want to have this data anyway, they will have access to it. So I don't think they need to go through the application to actually gather this data. Because if you're on AWS, Amazon most likely has your data. So I just kind of wanted to add a bit of nuance there as well.
Michelle,
Just
I
to
think the
say the
thing with
type of
people getting
data that
paid.
they were, sorry to sound you, just to say the type of data they were collecting is not something, unless you were looking to invest in the founders, you would know. Because it was about plans, future goals, or those kind of actually building a business. So I don't think they have it as detailed as they could on other things.
Now, I just also want to say those are the same information that they will give to VCs and anyone else investing in those companies. So I just think it's not that like black or white. So I think it's a win-win situation. And I actually appreciate they have the opportunity to be part of these kind of programs, because when those companies don't do enough, it's more like they don't really care about diversity founded startups and so on. So I'm more excited for those startups than anything, because having access to those information is not that hard nowadays.
Well, if it's not that hard nowadays, why are they
Okay, so I got
why are they required? I mean, for me, Michelle, I'm not neither for nor against, right? I'm just like, I just want everyone to get paid. That's my thing. So it is what it is. It's just the way that I view it. I don't think it's right or wrong, and I don't think it's wrong or right. So that's pretty much where I stand.
okay. So we're gonna
Tyler,
we have
Tyler,
a
Michelle has
quick
an event
blast of
today,
headlines
right?
to run through.
On
Yes,
Harvard.
Cheryl.
Yes, tonight I think. You
Oh,
ask
is that
her.
right? Thank you for reminding me. Okay, perfect. So, by the way, Michelle, who what you just saw commenting, works at Facebook, and it put together something truly brilliant, and asked if she could do it under the Tech News Club. Which, as soon as you hear what she's doing, you'll understand why I was so excited. It's about, let's see, it's 3 plus 7, about 8.5 hours from right now. And you can see this event by clicking on the title of this room, where you'll see the Tech News Club, which of course you follow already. And if you don't, today you can do it for absolutely free. And so please do join the Tech News Club. And you'll see, if you scroll through the upcoming events, I think it's the third event, you'll see it says FAANG, which we call FANG internally. And that means Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, if I got them right. And job referral, interview tips, and ask me anything with people who work at those companies, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Google. And this is really such a genius thing that they are doing. If you are interested in working at one of the big companies, as Michelle does, they are all hiring like crazy. They're growing like crazy. And this is what a unique opportunity to talk with people at those companies here in Clubhouse in a way that I don't know that you ever could anywhere else. This is just genius what you're doing, Michelle. So I'm honored that to help promote it. And I'll be there. Cal will be there. And in fact, it starts immediately after when we do Tech News later today. So we do Tech News about 6 hours from now, and we're going to do it for a couple hours, and then it goes right into this job referral thing. So if you or somebody you know might be interested in joining Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Google, Netflix, bring them. And what an incredibly cool, valuable thing
what a
you're doing.
useful
And
and practical thing to do, and
Constructive.
also,
exactly,
very constructive. Thank
yep,
you, Cheryl.
boom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the reminder,
If
Cheryl,
I
and
can
thank you,
just
Michelle.
add a bit of context. So the reason we're doing that
Yep.
is also to demystify working in a FANG, and also giving the opportunity to more diversity, because I mean, hiring more diversity is definitely top priority for those companies. So it's basically finding, because not everyone has a chance to be referred, and I'm talking about junior to mid senior level people, and we're using these rooms as a pipeline as well to get them at the door at least. So
Boom. And they pay pretty well, I
well,
hear,
I'm not
right,
going to
Michelle?
comment on that, so I'm not.
But by the way, Facebook announced since the room launched, basically in the last few hours, that they are going to continue to
Yes.
let people work from home. Yeah, so you got that going for you. And some other
Excuse me,
big tech news, as
Tyler.
you mentioned.
Did you get my note about
Yes.
that? Facebook says that if you're going to work from home, you might get a payment decrease if you move to somewhere far away and cheaper, like Thailand, for example. I tweeted that about 20 minutes ago or so. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's all. That was from
Sorry.
3 weeks ago that we learned that. But that's all right. By the way, if it's more than 3 days old, in the mainstream media, we had a couple of instances today of some older news. Mainstream media is generally lagging now, several hours behind us, like they did yesterday with the El Salvador passing of the Bitcoin, where we just talked about it endlessly for 2 hours, and then 2 hours later, mainstream media started writing the headlines. Here's a headline though. Speaking of Amazon and the cloud and data, Alibaba, which is sort of the Asian version of Amazon, if you want to think of it that way. Alibaba expands its cloud products because just like Amazon has AWS, the cloud, so does Alibaba. That's why I said it's kind of like the Asian Amazon. Alibaba expands its cloud products with live stream shopping in its battle against Amazon, is the headline. Like the Asian Amazon, because they are competing directly with Amazon, and they are adding and expanding their cloud products to include live stream shopping. What is live stream shopping? Well, it's the biggest thing in all of Asia, and it's going to be the biggest thing in America in the next few weeks. And because we had headlines yesterday that Instagram is now enabling the influencers and popular Instagrammers to sell products and allow basically people also to create simple little shops within Instagram. And you might be asking yourself, why would I put my shop on Instagram? Who's possibly going to see me? I'm nobody. I only got like 10 people following me on Instagram. Well, due to the genius of data, again, by the way, these are data companies, they can match your products in your shop with influencers who have lots and millions of followers, and they might sell the shoes in your shop for you, and they will get a little commission for doing that. And that is truly genius, and it's almost an unfair advantage. But that's what these data companies do with their data. They have an unfair advantage of how to connect and make magic happen. And it's truly genius. And it revolutionized shopping in Asia, and it will do the same in the US very, very soon. So you're going to see every mom and pop shop in your town with an Instagram account, with a Facebook account, putting all their stuff on there, selling it, but they don't have to worry about their own followers because there's going to be this matchmaking service between people that do have followings and these little shops and the products that they sell. And they are going to tell these influencers, hey, we think you should promote these particular shoes because we see your audience better than you do. And we think you should be promoting these shoes. And by the way, these shoes are being sold from thousands of shop owners in Facebook that have locations all over the US and are willing to ship them right now. So you, as the viewer at home watching this influencer promote these shoes, when you click the shoes, you're going to be suggested the shop that's selling it closest to you. So it actually could be really beneficial to all the mom and pop shops all around the world, which is a very different model than what Amazon's doing with their distribution centers, because the mom and pop shops are not able to participate and sell in Amazon generally. And so it'll be very fun to watch how this all unfolds. But again, the headline is Alibaba is now expanding into live stream shopping. And indeed, that will be coming too. When these Instagrammers are selling these shoes, it will not just be a photo. It will be a photo, and it will be a little video, and it will also be them live streaming in real time. And that is what's exploding here in Southeast Asia at the moment on Facebook and on Instagram and TikTok. And TikTok just announced they are getting into the live e-commerce as well here in the US. Instagram will as well. Facebook will as well. YouTube will as well. Mark my words, bet every penny you have on what I'm saying, because we already see the early smoke signals. And this live stream shopping is going to blow your mind. It's wildly entertaining to watch people try and sell products to you think Instagram influencers are entertaining now, hanging off of cliffs, and risking their lives to get followers? Wait until they're trying to sell, and make money from selling handbags. It's truly wildly entertaining, and it has become a new form of
Tyler,
entertainment
just quickly,
here
is it safe to say that
around
there's
Asia.
going to be
So
some sort, if there isn't already an agreement between Apple and Facebook,
Because how does this fit in? You might have to like educate me a little bit here. How does this fit into the whole Apple sort of 30% rule for the store and purchasing through the apps and whatnot? If this starts happening through Instagram and Facebook on their iOS apps.
Yeah. To be determined. Let's watch those headlines. Maybe now we understand why it's been slow
About
to adopt
renegotiating,
here in the
right?
US.
It's
Let's
just
see what
deals.
happens.
It's
That's a
Yeah,
huge
because
question.
Apple has one with Amazon, don't they? They have an agreement with Amazon.
Yeah. But now you know why forward, because they have ambitious plans of their own that they need to get ironed out before all of this goes down. So it'll be very interesting to see. Speaking of Facebook, though, Facebook's ad chief, Carolyn Everson, is leaving the company. Facebook's global ad chief is departing the company. Facebook is an advertising giant. In fact, that's what it is. It's an advertising giant with a social network based on top, which is how it powers its ad network. That is expected to command nearly a quarter of digital ad spend globally. To unpack that into simple English, 25% of all ads are now on Facebook. Just to give you a sense of how big of an ad network Facebook is, and how did they manage to get 25% of the entire ads of the planet? Well, because they've got all of this amazing data around people. And that's why, and you gave them that data. You and all your friends gave them all that data, and you continue to give them that data, and it powers their ad network. That's what they are, as an ad network. And your assumption that it's a social network is actually a bit naive, you should say. But they're going to add more data through this upcoming smartwatch with cameras and now you understand why they're doing the smartwatch. Anyway, but the fact that their ad chief is leaving is precisely goes back to my point that they are now their ads as an ad network is now going to shift more into being the future of e-commerce. And that's why we're talking about the live streaming and the selling and all of this. That isn't so much about ads. It's more about being the Pinduoduo for the Western world, which is truly tremendous opportunity, trillions of dollars, in fact. And you're going to see that transition happen. And it's a really interesting transition underway with Facebook. And now, to me, it's not a surprise that their ad chief is leaving the company. If you've been following us every day, you can put those dots together. Now, here's two other massive, equally, even potentially even bigger dots and pieces on the chessboard at play. Watch how these two headlines go together. Google's health lead. Google health lead. Google what? Google Health. Yes, Google is getting into health in a very big way. And Google's health lead says that global impact is more important than revenue for now. Google's health vice president named David Feinberg says he doesn't feel pressured to produce revenue, but instead to have a global impact. Remember the conversation earlier about how companies operate when they're trying to dominate the market and make a monopoly? They're not worried about the revenue. Not at all. They're going to subsidize it, make it really cheap, and that's the name of the game. That's how you get market share. You make your product the cheapest on the market, and you get market share until you have a dominant position and there's no other competitors, and then you raise the price, just to repeat the theme here. And so Google's health vice president doesn't feel the pressure to produce revenue. Of course not. Neither does Amazon. Feinberg, who's helped lead the company's health unit for the past 2 years, says he feels pressure to produce health products to Google-sized scale. Oh, what does that mean? Exactly what I just said. They're interested in dominating the planet. Google-sized scale means we're going to take over the planet. That's what that means. Let me translate that for you. Meaning it could be used by millions of people. Feinberg said in order to bring its product to scale, meaning dominate the planet, it needs two things: partnerships and public trust. And so that's the headline from CNBC. I will tweet that out for you to share with your friends from our Twitter account at Tech News Around the World. And thank you to whoever sent that in. And then here's the other related article. Amazon has signed up multiple companies to its telehealth service. Well, didn't we just hear the Google Health boss say that they need partnerships? Well, why is this headline saying that Amazon has signed up multiple companies to its partnerships? The headline is precisely Amazon has signed up multiple companies to its telehealth fit together within hours apart of each other. Amazon has signed up multiple companies to its telehealth service called Amazon Care, a company executive said Wednesday. Amazon Care provides virtual and in-home health services to some Amazon employees. The company announced in March that it would open up Amazon Care to other companies later this year. Amazon has attracted multiple companies that are interested in using its telehealth service known as Amazon Care. Company executive Babak Pervez said on Wednesday, we've had quite a bit of interest from other companies in using this service. So now you know that it's Amazon versus Google in a super huge battle of the jungle between these two massive gorillas
to dominate the world,
to dominate and take over the healthcare of the planet. Google-sized ambitions, and Amazon and Google are now the two big players to take over the entire world of health. And I don't know that it could be more clear by reading those two headlines back to back, which both just came out in the last few hours. So, but as Tech News Around the World regular listeners, you now know what the hell's really going on.
There's another player there, Walmart, too.
And there's one other player, and Rhonda, the genius that she is, just tweeted it in, and I'm retweeting it to our ever-growing list of 2,000 beautiful, genius Tech News Twitter followers. Thank you, Rhonda. Here's the headline, again from the past 24 hours. Walmart signals plans to offer telehealth in 16 more states. An insider report found that the medical group for Walmart Health has registered to operate in Alaska, Texas, Montana, and more than a dozen other states. The medical group for Walmart Health has filed paperwork to do business in more than a dozen states. Here's the quote: we've expressed our interest in offering telehealth via our acquisition that is pending regulatory clearance, because we're already such a big monopoly, is the subtext there. And these filings are related to that effort, not physical Walmart Health locations, although they are doing those, and we have seen photos of those. A Walmart spokesperson said to Shelby Livingston, and Walmart is one of the other massive players in this massive health space. To be continued. And what else do we? Amazon Care, we covered that. And now you understand this last article from Politico, who covers the political tech angle from around the planet. House Democrats about to uncork a 5-pronged assault on big tech. Well, why would they do that? Well, maybe it's because they know what these big tech giants are up to with their very ambitious plans to take over the medical systems of the planet. Bill set to announce the incoming days would make it easier to break up giant tech companies, block them from merging, and prohibit them from hobbling their rivals. As we've been saying for the past 2 hours, they will acquire any new future competitors, any little horsey ponies that might become future unicorns that into their areas that they are racing will be acquired, because that's how that game is played, my friends. House Democrats are set to introduce a package of 5 bills as soon as this week that would prohibit tech giants like Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google from discriminating against rivals or buying potential competitors. 2 individuals familiar with the discussions told Politico the most serious effort yet to rein in Silicon Valley's power after years of complaints from Congress. The most controversial bill would let prosecutors sue to break up major tech companies by forcing the platforms to sell off lines of business if they represent a conflict of interest. Politico obtained drafts of all 5 bills. No doubt we will keep updated on that, retweeting that out, and thank you to whoever tweeted that in. And last but not least, to end it on a really happy note, thank you to Johan, I think, for this one. I think many people autonomous driving. Volkswagen hopes $8.50 an hour. Automaker plans to offer video games that drivers can play while charging. And they've actually have the photo of the vehicle in a very beautiful rendering. It looks like a real photo, actually. And so here you can see the very future autonomous vehicle from Volkswagen. And the article reads, the future of driving may cost you $8 an hour if Volkswagen follows through on its boardroom musings. The German automaker is considering charging an hourly fee for access to autonomous driving features once those features are ready. The company is also exploring a range of subscription features for its electronic vehicles, including range or performance increases that can be purchased on an hourly or daily basis. So that Volkswagen now doesn't want to sell you the car, just as I said would be coming in the coming days. And here it is. And here's the headline. They don't want to sell you the car no more because it makes them too much money. They'll rent you the car on an hourly basis. You don't even get to drive the car. The car drives itself. And you can pay $8 an hour to go wherever you need to go.
You said that.
And for $8 an hour,
Yeah, Kal Patel, we really need to get a special sound for each time that Tyler rightfully could say, I told you so. We need a sound,
Well, that's just
something.
your voice, Johan, and Rhonda's
Yeah.
voice. You guys can just call it out. That's your voice.
And well, now check, the article gets better. The executive said that Volkswagen will offer video games in cars similar to Tesla's arcade. And there they expose their competitor, who's also going to do the exact same thing, no longer sell the cars. You might have a subscription to the car so that you can get in the car anytime you need, go wherever you want, because the car is too valuable to them. Because it's going to be transporting. If you look at the vehicle in the photo that I just tweeted out of this Volkswagen car, there's plenty of space in that vehicle to transport products and services and goods, which it no doubt is going to be delivering lunches and deliveries and e-commerce deliveries all around town 24 hours a day while you sleep or not. It won't make sense for you to own a car no more, because you'll be paying $8 an hour when you do need a car, or maybe some flat fee per month, or it might be part of your Amazon Prime subscription. Because make no mistake, the battle will be between Amazon, Google, Tesla, and VW. It can't be more clear. It really cannot. And they are going to acquire, and they already are trying to acquire any competitors who are going to try and get into their 4-horse race. It is crystal clear. So, and indeed, the vehicle will be chock full of video games and movies and everything else to keep you entertained while the car does its driving. Volkswagen's real moneymaker might be autonomous driving, the article says. In autonomous driving, we can imagine that we switch it on by the hour. We assume a price of around €7 per hour. So if you don't want to drive yourself for 3 hours, you can do it for €20, said Klaus Zellmer, chief sales officer of Volkswagen. In a swipe at Tesla, he said that by charging hourly fees, VW would make autonomous driving more accessible than a car with a 5-digit surcharge. Oh, how silly and stupid you are, Mr. Zeller. You think Tesla doesn't know what you're doing, you idiot.
This is going to be really, really interesting to see how long governments take to catch up. Because at the moment, obviously, the automotive industry is controlled by these sort of oligopolies, and then Tesla's come along and shaken shit up wonderfully. But traffic and actual transport is still down to the person and down to the governments. You know, they're controlling that aspect of it, you know, the actual logistics. But of course, once this moves into a software autonomous thing, the actual traffic of a city is no longer being controlled by the government. It's being controlled by these private firms. You know, who goes where, when. It's a crazy thought. You know, what happens if they get hacked? Like we've seen recently.
Takes the risk, right, in the accident during autonomous mode versus non-autonomous?
Yep.
They'll figure all that out, though.
We're 13 minutes past the hour. Do follow the club, and we will see you very soon at a Tech News Around the World or one of the other deep dive rooms that are coming up later today, including Michelle's fantastic networking job fair, digital job fair, virtual job fair of sorts, which again will be there for that. But hopefully see you back here for Tech News Around the World very soon. Thank you to everybody for joining us, and see you next time. Have a wonderful Thursday.
Thank you.